Welcome to the Women in Leadership Body, Mind, Soul, and Business podcast. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Heather. And together we are working to connect women in leadership and business, empowering each other, improving the health and wellness of our community, body, soul, and mind, connecting to the heart and soul of who we are and what we do.
Hi, good morning. Today's guest, Joanne Edinberg, is just amazing and helps you wrap your head around food and how that affects your mindset. It's pretty cool.
It is really cool. So thank you so much for joining us again, Joanne. Why don't you go ahead and for people that don't know you, say a little bit about what you do.
Okay, thank you for having me again. My name is Joanne Edinberg, and I am the founder of Body Wisdom Nutrition. And I help women to relax with food, weight, and body image so that they can spend their time and energy doing what truly nourishes them. And so I'm kind of on a mission to help people end the quest for the perfect diet, the perfect body, and really focus on what's important for all of us.
Nice. And what is your ideal clientele? What are you looking for in your business right now?
Yeah, I mean, I generally work with women, and I like to work with women who are just tired of the same old, like been trying for maybe their whole lives to lose weight or deal with the challenges they have around food, and are looking for a different approach, to the usual, just restrict yourself and only eat these foods. And I try to focus on, feeling good as opposed to looking good, and, working on moving your body in a way that's fun and joyful, and really getting at the root of why we do the things that we do. And so I like to work with people who are interested in really digging deep, who are willing to get vulnerable and really focus on the deeper issues. Because I think a lot of the programs out there and people that you can work with, it's a little bit, it's somewhat superficial, really quick fix type of strategies. And I'm more about the long term and trying to find things that are more sustainable to help you feel better. So
It's so exciting because I think as we approach the holidays and approach New Year's and we're thinking about, setting goals around our health, we don't want just to be, I'm at a point where I don't want to be neurotic. I don't want to be the calorie counting, carb counting freak that won't eat that because it's 22 points of something over, that's not, that's not the life that we want to have.
Enjoying the festivities without feeling guilt and shame about it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And Joanne is the one.
Definitely talk about that. Enjoying the festivities without feeling guilt and shame. I think we just found the title here. How about that? That's what we're doing. So how do we do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot of the work that I do, is trying to help shift out of that guilt and shame, judgmental mindset, and really trying to find the acceptance and self-compassion that we need to change. I mean,
acceptance, self-compassion. I like, you're dropping some bombs here. The self-care, knowing yourself, right? So I don't know about you, but I kind of rehearse what's going to happen, because you kind of know, you're going to go to so-and-so's house, you arrive at this time, dinner ends up at this time, so-and-so's passed out by this you kind of have this story, right? So what's the story you're telling yourself around food? And then how do you feel in that story? That's where I start. Is that how I want to show up and feel? Do I want to feel on display for everyone to decide, wow, you shouldn't be eating that, or, judged by what's on your plate.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think I love what you just said in terms of thinking about, what might happen. And I think actually I would say the best thing to do in these situations, doesn't matter what the situation, but especially for holidays, especially if you're going to be with family, where you might have a lot of history and stories, especially around food, is just using it as an opportunity to be an observer, to be a researcher. Okay, just what's happening here? Not just with them, but with yourself. Like really paying attention to what thoughts are going through my head. What am I feeling right now? When you're interacting with certain people, when you're getting your plate filled up, when people actually make those comments to you, you know, or maybe that's not happening. That maybe you think that people are judging you, and it's really not. It's just really a big question. Trying to get curious about it, because I think being present and being really mindful, especially when we're eating or when we're in these social situations that involve food, that's where we're really gonna learn what's going on. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, and you might not be able to do it. You might have that intention and just be like completely not focused and present during the whole event. But you can also go back and think about that later. What was I feeling during that situation when I was having that conversation, when we were sitting down at the table? I think it's just an opportunity to really look at what's going on and being present. So that's one idea I have.
I love that it's the opportunity, right? Because I think we think of it not as an opportunity. We like have a negative thought process around it, right? And that's when we aren't using the 4 agreements. We've been talking about the 4 agreements, and if you're taking it personally when somebody says something, you've prejudged them of what they're saying. Like you're in your own story in your own head. And when you start using the 4 agreements and you run that conversation through your head and you step back and you breathe, then you're present in the moment, and then you can be aware. That's cool.
Am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling shame? Where is that coming from? Because I know for me, a lot of the guilt and shame around food is like portions. And did you try my whatever? Right? You got to make sure you try everybody's dish. And if when I was a kid, it's like you better eat everything you put on your plate.
Oh yeah.
Right. So one of the things that I do for myself over the holidays to help myself with the portion control is and I still like to try out everybody's little thing, but is I use a smaller plate. Right? Then I'm not overfilling it so much.
Then it can have the full looking plate. You have that illusion that you have more, right? Like,
and you know what? Nobody notices.
Right.
And,
or
am I judging myself? But at the same time, if I overeat and I overstuff myself, I don't feel good.
Right.
And if
I'm not enjoying the festivities anymore, right? Like, oh gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Now I have to drive home like this.
So you get turkey coma.
Right.
Which was part of the story, right?
Right.
And maybe that's okay. Like, let's just be open to like this is what might happen, and I don't need to make it different from that.
Right.
So,
right.
But you do have the choice to do it how you want to do it. But I think the key is like trying to also use it as an opportunity to learn to trust yourself in those situations. Most of us have really lost trust in our ability to know what we should eat, how much we should eat. And even if you quote unquote, overeat, that's okay. That's like a good opportunity to notice that. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And maybe in this situation, it's okay. It was super stressful because, I was getting triggered by this person and that person and this
And
comment.
instead of saying something, I put another thing in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we have these strategies, and sometimes they serve us, right? So, just looking at it that way. And I think also slowing down, in addition to being present, just slowing down. It's very hard to overeat if you eat really slow and you're really paying attention, because your body is noticing more how you feel. If you're on automatic pilot, it's very easy to do things that your body's not really enjoying because you're not paying attention to it. So I think slowing down, taking some deep breaths is another good strategy for being able to figure that out.
And then you could still be eating your first plate while everybody's on like their third, right? Like
Exactly.
if you're slow about it, like
then it still looks like you're eating plenty. Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna, because
nobody
I always
counts.
had the grandma that was like, "You're not eating enough," right?
Oh
Mhm.
Yeah.
gosh.
Okay. So anyway,
I'm thinking of like the trauma of that. Like, where does that come from? Because that came from the Great Depression, right? Like you need to eat, you have food. This is the abundance I get to provide for you. Please eat my food. Now we have an abundant food source.
most
It's
of the
not, right. It's
time.
there's still an abundance. Like
Mhm.
even when I'm having a rough month, right? Like there's still food.
Right.
It might have to be cooked or it's a different food, but it's still like we're not scrounging for food like we were in the
Right.
Depression.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Which is
and
the
that's
era of our
where,
grandparents.
that's grandma. Grandma that's what she came from.
Mhm.
So, are we still carrying that energy forward with our food? Wow, I just got goosebumps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
Joanne,
true.
I was going to ask you, you talked just really briefly about trusting yourself when it comes to food.
Mm.
Mhm.
Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I like to talk about that. And I think I have a little bit different perspective than a lot of people on this. But yeah, in order to trust ourselves, we need to allow everything. That's what I believe. I believe we have to have a period of time, especially if you've been depriving yourself of a lot of different types of food
Mhm.
or amounts of food,
Mhm.
that we actually have to get to a place of just allowing everything and then being able to figure out what's right for us. So it's kind of the opposite of most perspectives where, well, just don't eat this, that, and the other thing, and you'll feel better, or you'll be fine, or you lose weight, or whatever it is. I do think we need to get to a point where we can trust ourselves to know what that is, because it's different for every person. There are so many different ways of eating out there, and I think each of them works for some group of people. And I think there definitely is this idea that we often eat too much, when a lot of times we're not eating enough, especially when it comes to weight. If our body feels like it's being deprived of actual calories, it goes into starvation mode. It's trying to hold on to that energy because it feels like it's not getting enough. And that can happen also when we're just depriving ourselves of whole categories of food, like carbohydrates, for example, even sugar. There's things that our body needs. And yes, we can make, healthier choices in different categories, but in reality, like that feeling of deprivation, kind of like what you were saying, when people really were starving and really didn't have enough food, our body doesn't really know the difference between that and just putting ourselves in the situation where we're depriving ourselves even though we have enough, right? So it creates that mindset, and that affects us physiologically. It creates that stress, those beliefs. I can't eat that, that's bad. These negative beliefs just put us into that stress response that isn't good for us. So we need to be able to relax when we're eating to be able to use our food well. So it's like it's complicated, but I do feel like we need to allow as opposed to deprive. No one likes to be deprived. Like as human beings, we fight back, we rebel, right? When someone tells us we can't do something, we don't like it. Even if consciously we're like intellectually, no, this is good. This is a good thing. We don't actually like that. So allowing, I think, is important. And then you can get to a place where you can figure out from the inside out, what's good for you, how much is good, which types of foods are right. But it could take a while. Like many of us have been doing this for decades. We don't actually know what feels good. And context is important too, because the same foods can be better or worse for us depending on what's going on. And that, I think, is a interesting concept. And just think about the holidays. So we're in this context with people that we might not spend time with otherwise. Maybe it's just a few times a year. And it's sort of reminding us of different situations. It might be more stressful. It might not. It might be great. It's like, oh, I love getting together with these people. But, so that really affects our actual physiology and what is going to happen when we eat. So also not worrying about it too much. It's like, okay, like it's just a few times a year or whatever. It's not every day of my life and every meal of my life. So also just kind of letting go, and because of that.
Right. I had an experience last week where I didn't really eat much. One day I had like toast for breakfast, and then I had like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner because I was just tired, and I knew I needed to eat something, and then I went to bed. The next morning I woke up and I was starving. My blood sugar was low. I was shaky. I had to have Heather help me make breakfast. I was like, I need food. Meanwhile, while she's cooking breakfast, I'm like grabbing leftover turkey out of the fridge because I'm like, I need protein in my face right now because I felt like I was going to pass out. So,
and then we reminded ourselves to schedule our food time into our schedule. So that reminds us to triggers us to do it.
Checking in, making sure we're eating, regularly. Did you eat breakfast today? No, I didn't eat breakfast. Well, go eat breakfast right now. And just checking in with each other, because we do forget to eat because we get busy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that does not help.
Right.
But I mean, your body was obviously telling you exactly what you needed, in that situation.
Right.
And you see it with kids too, right? Like we get all worried as parents, like, oh my God, they didn't eat anything today. Or,
I always was like, they'll eat when they're hungry.
Exactly. They could actually be a little bit more, roller coastery with food than we are, perhaps, where they can actually go a few days without really eating much, and then they make up for it. And
and then all of a sudden they have a hollow leg and eat everything in the house. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. I mean, that was the number one way to tell if my kids were in the middle of a growth spurt, was how much food are they eating right now?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
I remember one of my friends going to her son's doctor and was like, he's like eating in the middle of the night. Like, I can't get him to some doctor's like, he's hungry, let him eat. And she was like, okay. I just is like mind blown. I don't understand, but like, they're hungry. Like, let them eat. They're hungry. Like,
and I think that brings up a good point. Like, a lot of times when people are trying to lose weight, for example, and they, don't eat much of the day, and then they wonder why they're so hungry at night. Like, they just ate dinner and then they're still hungry and they're wanting, to eat more at 10, 11 o'clock at night. It just makes sense. You've kind of starved yourself most of the day.
right.
Of course you're going to be hungry. Like, don't beat yourself up over that. Maybe there is a different way to kind of balance your food intake so that you eat more early in the day. You probably won't be hungry. I mean, there are other reasons why we eat too, but
Mhm.
there are actually very good reasons to eat that just based on how much food we require. So yeah, that's
That's really cool.
yeah.
I
That's
know
really
that I
cool.
feel better if we have like a good breakfast, right? Like
Mhm.
with the protein, a good mix of
Mhm.
carb in there, some sort of fruit usually. I know I'm
And
supposed to try to mix a vegetable in there, but
I like to have vegetables for like lunch.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
vegetables and protein, like chicken and salad or something like that. And then dinner is a little bit of veggies, some protein, and some starch, usually, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but these are all excellent tips as we go into the holidays, you know, to be aware of how we feel when we're eating.
Mhm.
Slow
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
right?
slow
Okay.
down.
Don't beat yourself up about it.
Mhm.
Use a smaller plate
You can
if you want.
if you want to,
Mhm.
If
right?
if you want a strategy, like if you need something,
Mhm.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that. And
Yeah.
just enjoy,
Yeah.
because enjoy having pleasure, like
Mhm.
actually getting pleasure from your food is
Mhm.
really good for your metabolism and your digestion, because that's what puts
Mm.
you in that relaxation
Mhm.
state that we need to be
Oh,
able to
Right.
absorb our food well. So don't forget to have fun and get pleasure out of your holiday time, even though, it could be a little rocky. I mean, it's definitely
my
up and
my
down.
favorite thing growing up was being in the kitchen with all the women in the family
Mm,
and listening to them share stories and things. So I always loved that. When I
Mhm.
was in my early 20s, I was
mhm.
stepping back and just doing that observe piece during the holidays. And I'm really glad I did, because I have those memories now,
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
full kitchen and the sounds and
Mhm.
the smells
Mhm.
and hearing everyone's laughter and have goosebumps.
I'm looking forward to
And
enjoying that myself with my
and
family.
and this year's a little different. I'm grateful, like we get to choose. So,
Mm,
my son is on the spectrum, and he wants a calm, drama-free holiday. So
mhm.
we're not even making a turkey. We're going to make homemade broccoli cheddar soup. So, we get to decide.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah,
excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
What are you
That's
most
great.
looking forward to going into the holidays?
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think, especially with Thanksgiving, I think about gratitude. And gratitude
Yeah.
also is a very good state to be in for
Mhm.
your digestion and your metabolism. It
Mhm.
just makes you feel good. So,
Mhm.
yeah, really trying to focus on that, I guess, and what
Mhm.
what we do have. And I don't have a lot of family in where I live, so I don't
Mhm.
usually spend Thanksgiving with my family of origin. But it's usually with friends and
Mhm.
my son and my partner. So yeah, trying to focus on that,
Mhm.
but also being really, like I said, present to the negative stuff too. It's not all,
Mhm.
rainbows and roses and unicorns.
Right.
So, you know, just paying attention to that. But yeah, yeah, I like uh, trying out new recipes. So I'm not even
Mm.
sure what I'm gonna make, but gotta figure that out soon, right?
I suppose we do,
But
right?
I like to experiment in that regard too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how
me too.
fun.
Me too.
Yes.
It's super fun.
Hmm.
I
So,
love that gratitude and mindset are that we've been working on is also good for our digestion. Thank you so much for
Hmm.
sharing that with us.
Hmm.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
gratitude for that, like just in and of itself, like just
Hmm.
having that calm mind. And I just never really put those pieces together. So I
mhm.
love that every time we talk
Hmm.
that we can do that. So thank you so much,
Hmm.
Joanne.
Thank you.
Joanne, thank you for joining us for this week's podcast, which is a special early edition podcast for Thanksgiving. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Mwah. Okay.
So we are Sue and Greta, or our trail names are Lilo, and Stitch, and we are hiking the whole Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia, so 2,194.3 miles. And we're doing it to raise $50,000 or more
Yes.
for Parkinson's disease research.
Yeah, through the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And we are doing it all in honor of my dad, her husband, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease back in 2010. So
Right.
and we all know so many people who are diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and we are trying to do our small part in the world of Parkinson's disease to find a cure.
Thank you for joining us today on the Women in Leadership Body, Soul, Mind, and Business podcast. Please download the podcast on your favorite podcast player. We love you, and we will see you next time. Namaste.